Welcome to Scale Her Up, the Female Entrepreneurs Show with me, Brenda Hector. I'm a business growth specialist, helping business owners to develop themselves and grow their businesses so they can achieve their goals and enjoy the lifestyle they dream of. I'm on a mission to revolutionise the entrepreneurial landscape for women in business. In every episode, I interview someone who has an inspiring story or some great advice for women aiming to start or scale their businesses. If you're new to the show, take a moment to subscribe right now so you don't miss any upcoming episodes, and please check out the previous ones after listening to this. We have an awesome Facebook community. Just search for Scale Her Up and join in. Welcome to Scale Her Up and the Business Spotlight. I'm Brenda Hector, and I've got Elaine Arthur from QA Vehicle Solutions with me today. Elaine, thank you very much for joining me.
No, thank you for inviting me.
So, just tell us a little bit about how you got into business then.
I think I started, it was never my intention to go into business. I left school with no qualifications whatsoever. I was quite bullied at school, so I didn't attend school as much as I should have. So leaving school at 15 with no qualifications, with no prospects, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew that I wanted to get out of school. And it was my mum that one day she was at our annual checkup at the dentist and came back and said, "I've got your job." And I was like furious. I think you've done this and you've not even consulted me. Probably the best thing she ever did for my career, because she then got me into an environment which was a safe environment, and to suddenly be working with people who were wanting to teach you, and it was a very close-knit team that I worked with, and I learnt a lot. I was with them for 2 years, but it was not what I wanted to do, and finally realised actually this is not for me. And my sister seen an ad, obviously back then, 30, 40 years ago, your jobs were advertised in the local paper, and she says, "Oh, Elaine, there's a job here in a garage, service receptionist." And I thought, really? She went, "Oh, it'll be amazing, all these brand new cars and dead glamorous, and it's really up your street, you should go for it." So I applied, not really thinking I was going to get it, and went along, got the job. And my first experience of working in a garage, I was 19. It was not glamorous in any way, shape or form. It was working in a service department in a mucky garage. You did have a lovely showroom, and I found that I absolutely loved it. I loved the whole concept. I loved cars, and I just wanted to learn more. So I was with the company 3 or 4 years, and I was front of house. So I was basically a service receptionist, which the car comes in to be serviced, and you would just book it in for the mechanics to work. Then you give the car back to the customer. And I found that actually, more and more, I was having to say, "I'll need to go get someone to explain to you what they've done to your car." And I said to my manager at the time, "I want to know more. I want to understand. I want to do an apprenticeship program." And he says, "Well, there isn't one for females. The motor industry do not have apprenticeship programs that are for females. It's only for males. However," he says, "if you want to learn," he says, "you can go into the workshop at the weekend and work with the guys in the workshop." And I thought, right, okay, yeah, I'll give that a go. Not really thinking, I think they all kind of thought it was, because there is no one at this point in the industry. It was all office workers. Women just weren't in that production part of it. And I think they kind of thought, "Oh, it's just going to be a laugh." And I went along and I worked in every weekend. So I did my weekly job, and then I'd go into the weekends and work on cars. For the first 3 or 4 months, I was just a labourer. I was cleaning, moving waste oil, anything like that. I was not allowed to touch a car. And eventually one of the workshop foremen said, "Elaine, why are you doing this? You come in here every weekend and you get nothing but abuse. You get nothing, why are you doing it?" I said, "Because I want to learn. I want to understand. I want to understand what you do." And he went, "You're really serious?" And I went, "Yes." He went, "Right, so I'm going to show you how to do this." So that he taught me how to service a car, how to change brakes. He did the whole kind of almost an apprenticeship program, without the qualification at the end of it. And but what happened was I then started to get the confidence to actually say to customers, "Well, we've done this to your car, and this is the part that we've taken out, and we've taken out because of this." And it kind of spiraled into the fact that all of female drivers started coming into the garage. So the revenue increased just by having someone who could speak to females without being patronising to them about their cars.
Isn't that something that actually your determination and somebody willing to teach you actually, and the outcome was improved business.
Yeah.
But when asked, they'd said no, and you know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely crazy. And they still didn't recognize it. They didn't recognize it that this was actually a good thing. Because my annual appraisal, the question they always ask you is, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? And of course, I said service manager. I'm practically doing the job already. And they laughed. And he said, it's absolutely nothing to do with your ability. He says, because you've got the ability. And he said, in some respects, he said, better than some of the managers I've gotten there. You will not be promoted in that position because females in this industry do not get promoted into management. And it's purely because you're a female. And that was a blow, because I kind of thought, I love this. I love the industry. I love what I'm doing. I have a great relationship with the team. And I thought, and I'm not going to go anywhere. That's my career over. That's it. I can't go anywhere. So I thought, I'm going to look for another job. This is crazy. So there was a job that was advertised with Ford. And it was actually an after sales director was looking for an assistant. She was a female. And I thought, this is really unusual for a female to be at that level. And I thought, I want to go and work with this woman. So I went along for the interview. I didn't get it. But I did spend about 2 hours with her, and she gave me this inspiration to not give up. She says, go back, fight your corner. She says, because if we don't, she says, the industry will never change. She says, and she was probably about my age then, so I was in my early 20s. So she must have been about late 40s, early 50s. So clearly, I'd be surprised if she was still alive today. But she had kind of climbed through the ranks, and a lot of the stepping stones that she had was a lot to do with the fact that she was part of the Ford family. So she was already within that sphere, and a shareholder, and that's how she kind of got to that stage. But she was advocating women in the industry, and she said, no, we need more women. We have to have more women in the industry, and not just in the back office, front of house, operations, production. We need to start building that. Now, that was, 40 years ago. And I went back and I thought, yeah, do you know what? I'm going to keep my head down. She says, do not be scared to take a sideways step to get the qualification to move forward. She says, but your goal is still there. She said, but you might have to take a bit of a back seat to get there. She says, but don't be frightened to do it. And I kind of thought, I'm going to keep my head down. I'm going to start doing training. And within 2 years, the garage that I worked for was a multi-franchise garage, and the manufacturer we worked for was Nissan. At that time, Nissan decided to pull the manufacturer part of it out and set up their own garages. So what they did is they went and built these beautiful brand new garages with all the facilities, and then headhunted the best in the groups to go and work with them. So the manager that had given me the opportunity in the workshop had went to go and work for this new company directly with Nissan, which is a Japanese company. And he phoned me and he said, Elaine, he said, I want you to come with me. So I want you to come over. And I went, what do you do? I want you to run the service department for me. And that was my first taster of actually thinking, God, I can do this. And that's exactly what I did. I went to work for him. I was with him for, nearly 10 years. But I met my husband in that garage. He was exactly the same. He was poached from another organisation to come in and work in this beautiful new garage. And that's how we met. And the next step for me was when I had my kids, so my first son. And at that time, there was no support in the motor industry for women to take time out to go and start a family. Once you start a family, that's your career over, and you can't get back into the industry. And that's exactly what happened to me. A job I absolutely loved, but I lost it because I wanted to have a family. So I took 2 years out, could not get back into the motor industry. And then I had to think, and Grace told me, take a sideways step. And I thought, I'm going to move into the financial sector and take the step to actually get some kind of education on the business side of it. So I went into, believe it or not, the NHS, financial services, which was an amazing experience. I was taught a lot. When you're using public money, you get taught absolutely everything. Every pound and every penny is a prisoner, and how to maximise what you've got. And I took a lot of that experience, and I was with them for a long time, 15 years. Meanwhile, and obviously NHS, I could take time out because I had my second son, and had a really good work-life balance. My husband, he was climbing the ladder, still within the industry, and he was going from one garage to another. He was climbing the ladder into the point where he was at directorship level. And it was just one evening we were sitting, and he looked, he said, "I'm kind of done." And I said, "What's wrong?" He says, he said, "I'm fed up making money for other people." I went, he says, "I'm done doing this." And after a bottle of wine, he said, "Do you know what?" He says, "Why don't we open our own place? Why don't we get our own garage?" And I was like, "You really?" He went, "No," he said, "I think we can. I think we absolutely can." And that was it. I started looking for property, and we found this small garage, one car garage, and I thought, fantastic, we'll do this. There was only 3 of us. We had another one of our friends that came into the business and said, "I'll help." So it was that. So there was me who did all of the back office, business management, all of the finances. My husband, who was a painter to trade, so he could paint cars, and our other friend was a panel beater. So there was 3 of us. So we had the 3 disciplines, and we started off in this tiny wee place. Within 12 months, we had to go look for bigger premises. It started to grow and grow and grow. That chapter is a completely different experience as well, which the industry hasn't really changed its attitude towards women. Really, they tick a box, but deep down they haven't really changed. Now, owner of now, I'm one of the biggest garages for fleet repairs in Europe. But at the time when you're setting out, you're obviously trying to get business coming in. So we're inviting in all of these suppliers and customers, and trying to get business from them. And they would come along to the garage, and they would see me and 2 blokes, basically. And you sit in the boardroom with them. And the very first one that got me was hilarious. Took them into the boardroom, sat them down, and one guy turned around and he went, "I'll have a cup of coffee, white with one sugar." Okay, I said to everybody else, "Anybody else want a cup of coffee or tea?" So I went away and got all their cups and teas, came back into the meeting and sat down, and then I sat at the head of the table. And everybody, but my husband and my friend clocked it right away. And my husband said, "Oh," he says, "sorry," he said, "we've not really introduced." He says, "This is my wife, Elaine." He says, "She actually owns a company." And he slid under his seat. He was mortified. I think it was the comment of, "I'll have a coffee, love." So, and dismissed out of the room. And I think he kind of thought, she's going to be taking notes. She's here, minute take. Actually, no, she owns the company and she needs to sign off on all of this. So, and that was a good experience, I would say, of finally thinking, I am now sitting at the big boys' table, and I've earned the right to sit here, and now you can actually listen to me. And it's only been, I would say, in the last maybe 3 or 4 years that women are starting to get back into the industry, and at decent levels, and they are getting taken seriously. It's no longer just a boys' club. Where they all go off on the golf course and all of the business decisions are made on the golf course, and you're completely excluded. They are definitely changing, but yeah, it's a tough industry, but it's getting there. It is getting there.
So tell me about the business then, Elaine. That small garage that you started, and now where are you now? How big a team have you got?
Now we are on a 5.5 acre site, 23,000 square feet workshop. I have 54 staff, and we process between 500 and 900 cars a month through our workshops. So we do anything from a road car right up to a 10-ton truck. We have offshoots as well. So we've got a mechanical side. So we do like servicing and maintenance. And we have a what we call smart repair system, which is vehicles that you don't have to take any of the parts off or paint them to repair them. They use hot metal techniques to almost pop the dents out. So, and we have a team that is dedicated to do that as well. So, and that's probably as big as we're going to go. We've just opened up a satellite site, and it's a joint venture with one of our customers. And that is very, very small. It is almost cosmetic. There's only so many size of vehicles that we can put into it. That has got 6 staff in it. It's got a 1-car booth, but it's a track system. So car goes on, it's like a conveyor belt. Car goes on one side, and you push it through the system, and the other cars come on. So it's stuff that you can do quite quickly. There's no heavy damage to it. It is cosmetic. We opened that about 6 months ago, and it's a pilot to see whether it's going to work. And if that's the case, then our hope is to actually put it up and down the country, so that, and you're sharing premises, so the costs are all down. So you're sharing them with a client, and obviously their priority is because they want their cars. And it's predominantly car rental firms, because obviously their cars need to go on the road a lot faster. So what generally happens is if a car's rented and it comes back and there's damage on it, then it comes to us to be fixed, and we get it back on the road from them. Some of our rental companies also do, they call it an end of life scheme, which means that if they change their fleet, so they maybe change it, pandemic has changed all that, but they would change their fleets maybe every 18 months. So they would be brand new cars. And if they were leased vehicles and they're going back to the manufacturers, they have to go back in a certain state. So we call it a defleet program. So they bring them to us, and we completely put them back to the showroom standard, so that when they hand them back, the manufacturer can sell them on. So we have a couple of customers that we do that for as well. So it's seasonal, depending on when we put the cars through. But we also do insurance work as well. So we are the only repair garage in Europe that has this program. No one else no one does this at this scale. So we have 2 lines where we have insurance working and we have fleet. Fleet repair is, as I say, cosmetic. So it's to repair a car within a standard. So if you've got a scratch on your car, it's maybe that size. To bring it into standard, you bring the scratch down to that size, and they're quite happy with this. Accident damage, you have to take that car right back to how it was when it was manufactured. You have to completely repair it. So their techniques are very different in the workshop. The principles are the same, but the techniques are very different. And when you've got staff who have come from an insurance background and you're putting them into a fleet environment, they overwork the cars. So the more that they do to the fleet cars, the more it costs the company. So you've got to do what within standard, because that's where we make our money. And we can't put a car out like that. But actually, that's what the customer wants. So it's a fine balance. So what we've done is we've taken all of our staff and we've trained them across all sections so that we can interchange them. So now, and it's quite unique that we've actually got teams that can do both insurance work and fleet work, and we can flip them at any point. So if our volumes in insurance drops, we can increase our fleet, and our workers can cope with that change. That is quite a challenging thing to do, to actually change the mindset of your staff into thinking, right, okay, that car, who does it belong to? What is the method for it? And what about that one? And you could have 2 cars sitting in the workshop that are worked completely different from each other. And now they're very good at doing it, but we are the only garage, because it shouldn't happen. It's like oil and water. Insurance work and fleet work should not be working in the same workshop. It shouldn't work, but we make it work. We fit the square peg into the round hole and get it to work.
In more, yeah, in more than just that. I mean, yeah, yourself in such a male-dominated industry, and yeah, so a bit of a disruptor, are you?
Yeah, absolutely. Changing the system, yeah, absolutely. And the teams that we've got now are quite diverse as well. I've just taken on a female panel beater, which is really unusual for a female to be in that discipline. She's going through her apprentice program with us just now, and applied, I was looking for a parts person to support our parts manager, and she applied for the job. I mean, I looked at her CV and I was like, I wonder why she's applying for parts. So I said, no, she's coming in. And the first thing she says to me, she said, kind of thought if I applied, I would get my foot in the door and then I'd be able to. And I went, well, I'm not employing you as a parts person. I said, I'm offering you an apprentice program. I said, and you can start whenever you want. And she absolutely loves it. Absolutely loves it. She's passionate about what she does. But it's actually changed the attitude in the workplace. It is really, really, it's interesting to watch, because I kind of thought it's the only female in the workshop, and I've got 23 blokes that are in there. I kind of pre-warn them, watch your language, watch what you're doing. You've got to remember that this is a workplace, and you're not down the club with your pals. This is, do not offend anyone. And they have been absolutely amazing with her, absolutely amazing. And I think that they're quite proud to be training someone as well, and this girl is really asks the right questions, and they're like, oh my God, love her. The tech that she's working with came to speak to me the other week there, and he came in, I said, and how's Joanna going? He went, Elaine, he says, can I clone her? He went, she's one of the best apprentices I've ever had. He said, I can't believe, he said, that this girl loves cars and loves what she's doing. And he said, it's just a breeze. He said, and being able to show someone what I do, he says, and for someone to be really appreciative, he said, it's great. He said, absolutely great. So I said, fantastic, I want to get more. Let's go and get more.
What's your key then, Elaine? Obviously you've built a great team there, and the training that you've just described as well. But what's your key to building a good team of staff?
Do you know, it's strange. I have a 92% retention in staff. And I wouldn't say that we are the best pairs in the industry. We're competitive, but I think it's because there's a good cross section of age groups, and everybody helps everybody. We have the philosophy is when it's busy, everybody picks up a shovel, even us. The senior team is your senior team, but they have to. Do not ask a member of staff to do something that you're not prepared to do yourself. And I think because we make ourselves available to the staff, not in a kind of, we do have an open door policy, but we will stand shoulder to shoulder when we have to. And I think they know that they can come to us if they have a problem. We might not be able to fix it for them, but we are quite open with them. We do treat it a bit like a family, which is sometimes good, sometimes bad, like most families. There's always going to be conflict. But we do tend to treat all of our staff as if they are family members, and that we're not there just to make money for the company. When we do well, the staff do well. They are well rewarded, they're well looked after, and it might not necessarily be a monetary reward. There's things that we do that staff get to be involved with. So there's maybe concerts that's coming up, then we'll put tickets into a pool and they can go and see Taylor Swift, or there's always something coming to Edinburgh, especially the festival. And the Edinburgh Festival, we always make a point of ensuring that the staff get the opportunity to attend something in the festival, so they get time to do it without compromising the business. And I think that's probably why we have kept our staff for so long, because they wouldn't get that kind of treatment anywhere else. They're not a number with us. They actually have, we know their families, we know their life. I think we would maybe sometimes to a detriment to us that we actually are too close to them at times, because we can get quite emotionally attached. And when people do want to leave, you finally think, oh God, why? What have we done? And you think, well, actually, no, this person's doing this because it's good for them and it's right for their family, and we have to support that. And it's not a slur. But I think because we do get quite emotionally attached, we kind of forget that we are employers as well, and we do have guidelines, and we need to put rules in place. And sometimes they get blurred lines of what we can and we can't do. But I do have a very good HR company that looks after us, who doesn't have the emotional attachment, who does say, no, actually, as much as it pains you, you do have to follow these rules. So we get good ones.
That's an interesting point then. Who are the supporters? Who are the, what's the benefit of bringing in an outsider that's got a different perspective to you inside the business?
I think because we're still very much a part of the business on a day-to-day basis. So you don't really get the overarching view that you would normally if you were just a stakeholder that came in once a month and everything's just on a bit of paper, it's on a spreadsheet. We're not. I think because we're so attached of the day-to-day running of the business and we're very much immersed in it, that it's difficult to detach yourself when you've got conflict, and getting the outside support who don't have that emotional attachment, and they see it as a bigger picture, and they see it from the point of, this is a business and this is how you have to treat it as a business. And we understand that you're attached to your staff and you're attached to a lot of the customers and things, but there has to be a line where you think, well, actually, do you know what? No, you really need to take the step back now and let us deal with the bit that you really don't want to deal with, because you know that what that families went through maybe 2 or 3 years ago. You're too involved. So having someone that doesn't have that attachment and is only seen as a group of staff who have all got contracts, who have all got their terms and conditions, they can then say, actually, that's your terms and conditions. There's no leeway here. Whereas coming to myself or Alan, not that we're full, not that we're kind of like, oh, but I think a lot of it is, do we bend the rules because we can't understand where you're coming from? And in actual fact, how do we know that we're not getting taken advantage of? So we bring outside people just to safeguard us and the company, because as much as everybody gets on and everything's fine and rosy in the garden, there will always be conflict, and there'll always be areas where you think you've done the right thing and it will eventually come back to bite you because you've kind of broken the rules and the staff have taken advantage of that. And at the time it was probably a good thing, but in the future when it becomes a problem, that can come back to haunt you. And so having an external company to look after that keeps us sane and safe.
Sticking to you mentioned your culture. I mean, you didn't say the word culture, but that's what you've done. You've created that, that lovely place for people to work that's got you that 92% staff retention. So that's about the culture that you've created there. But then also that you have to follow the rules of that culture, and everybody has to, it's leading by example, I guess, to an extent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it is. And I think because both Alan and I have came through the industry from grassroots, and we felt every bump in the road. So we kind of understand when we look at staff who are possibly going through the same, and we can think, well, no, we can relate to this. How can we help you? Rather than browbeating you and saying, well, actually, that's your terms and conditions, and I don't care that you've got problems at home. I need you here at work. It's more a case of, right, how do we make this work for both of us? That's going to work for all of us. And I think we're quite proud of the fact that that's what we do. Have we made mistakes and has came back to haunt us? Yes, absolutely it has. But too few for it to change what we do. It's only a small minority that we've maybe we've maybe read the situation wrong, and not realised that actually we probably should have taken advice on this before we offered this off and this came back. But it's only, and this is our 9th year we're going into. And in that time, I think we've only had probably 2 incidents where we have had to get professional help when it comes to employment and HR. which is incredible considering we've been going for this length of time. And to have staff that are happy, they're not happy every day, but they're happy enough to stay with us. And also they trust us as well, because through the pandemic, we had a real tough, like every other company, we had a real tough decisions to make. And at one point, we were actually sitting around the table and ate with HR, and we said we have to reduce our head count. And we were looking at our staff and we're saying, how do we do this? How do we say this person is more important than that person, because they are all important? And that was one of the hardest things we ever had to do. Thankfully, we didn't have to go down the route, and it was almost hours away from putting staff at risk. When the Nationwide, which was one of the biggest repairers in the UK, they went into administration because of the pandemic, as we're all struggling. And at that point, they had garages, the customers had cars on their garages up and down the country. So the insurers automatically phoned garages that were still operating, and we were one of them. And they phoned and they said, listen, we're struggling. Can you take cars in? We said, of course you can. He said, can you take 80? I said, yeah, we can take them. And that phone call was on a Friday night. And on the Monday, we started bringing cars in. On the Monday, HR came in and ripped up all of the letters that we were sending out to the staff that we were going to put.
The letters were written and they were saved because your competitor folded first.
Yeah, first. Yeah, exactly. It could easily have been us. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we've never forgotten that. We've never forgotten how close we came. Because when we looked at the finances, we thought, we've got 6 months left here in reserve, and then we're going to have to close the doors if we don't do something. And the biggest thing was your overheads, and your overheads is your staff. And that was hard. That was the hardest thing we've ever had to do behind closed doors. And the relief, it was just, oh my goodness, and that feeling of, I can now look at the staff in the face and say, I can keep you. I can absolutely keep you. We keep you going. But they were.
Myself, I've got goosebumps just hearing the story. It's phenomenal. So that and there are stories like these, so many stories in everybody's business. It's great that you hear them, because when other people are going through difficult times, it's good to know that you're not the only ones that are struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that we learned through the whole process, that everybody came together, and we had said to the staff before we actually, I don't believe that's my door. We had said to the staff that we need to find cost-saving exercises. So we're not going to come to you and say we only want you to do 4 hours. We want you to come and give us your ideas. What do we do? Because we want to keep everybody, but we do have to reduce our costs. What do we do? And even they were coming and saying, well, why don't we go down to half a day? Why don't we take a cut in our salaries for 6 months? Why don't we? And we're thinking, well, they're coming up with these ideas. That to me meant because they could easily have went, well, no, you're going to pay me and that's it. They didn't. They were all kind of like, well, how do we do this? How can we make this all work so that we all stay together as a family? And that was nice. That was really, really nice, because you suddenly felt we are actually all in this big boat together, and we all have to pick up an oar and see how far we can get by staying afloat. And I think that's why they've stayed with us for so long, because we will do absolutely everything we can to keep our staff. Not just keeping them, is developing them as well. Get access to a lot of the personal development. And knowing that probably that personal development, we may end up losing them because they will grow and they'll want to go in and start doing their own things. But we wouldn't be true to ourselves if we were to stop someone from bettering themselves. We should be looking at and thinking, this is our legacy. We're giving you the opportunity to develop this and move on. And you're taking our expertise and we're giving it to you because we want you to grow. Rather than suppressing it because we think, God, we're going to lose them. Well,
It
actually,
comes back to the story that you shared at the beginning about the guy who was willing to teach you about cars,
mhm,
and look where that's got you now. So
yeah,
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 yeah.
absolutely.
Family. What's it like being in business with your husband?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, the strange thing is because we worked together so closely for so long, um, we have always had an agreement, shall we say, that even when we were working in the same garage, when we first bought our first house together, was for the first hour we get home, we do not talk. We do not talk about work, and we cook together. So we go into the kitchen and we prep and we cook, and we don't say a word to each other for the first hour. And then when we sit down at the dining table, that's when we kind of like, how was your day? How was your day? And we've always done that, right the way through our careers. So it's not always been plain sailing. We do have difference of opinions, and absolutely we should have difference of opinions. And we bounce ideas off each other very well. We kind of complement each other in that respect. Whereas I can be quite, I want it done now. And he's like, oh, let's just think about it first, and let's have a look at this and make sure that we're actually doing this right and we're doing it for the right reasons. Where he's a bit more cautious, whereas I like gung ho, I want to do this and I want to change that and I want to get this in place, and he's kind of take a back seat. And with staff as well, he's very the diplomat. He's kind of like, right, okay, yeah, totally understand where you're coming. So rather than going off on a tangent, let's just take a breath, and let's just see that we're doing this properly. So yeah, it's interesting. Home life is interesting. Um, I think that my concern is if we retire together, that because we're both so active at the moment within within the industry and within the company, that will we have anything to talk about when we actually retire? Because our whole world has always revolved around the business or the jobs that we had in the business, because we both absolutely love the industry. Clearly, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing if we weren't. So I think that's both of us keep saying we're going to retire, we're going to retire. And I think the thought of it is like, oh God, what are we going to do? And are we actually going to have anything to talk about? Because we do talk about the business a lot at home. And a lot of it is just kind of firing ideas about, and a lot of them never ever get to the bone. It's just us sitting thinking, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And do you think we could change this? Or should we be changing the direction? And it's stuff that we just have over dinner, a glass of wine, and just kind of think, do you know, when we could do this a bit better, or should we change this? And 9 times out of 10, it very rarely gets to the boardroom. If it does, then we have a really good team that kind of brings us back down to earth, as if to say, fantastic idea, guys, but this is in practicalities because I want to. So when we do have all these kind of, I would call them brainstorming sessions, but they're not really, they're just us chatting over dinner. When we do turn to the board, then that's when the reality hits to say, well, actually, do you think this is going to work? And our team will, because they're the ones that have got to implement it. And they'll come up and say, well, actually, have you thought that this might not work because of, or it would say, fantastic idea, let's do it, let's try it. And the team will take it away and try it and work it. So yeah, home life is a bit of a mixture of an extension to work life, but a bit more fun.
It sounds like you've got a really good balance of different personality styles there between you and your husband, and then like your management team and everything. Yeah, sounds like you've done a really good job, excuse me, of building the right team around you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who else has been your supporter in business?
Um, Me personally or the business?
Both, I guess. You can't separate the two really.
Yeah, totally. Um, Probably our bigger supporters at the very beginning, because when we did our vision was never this. This has turned into something else. Our vision was to have a small garage, and just potter around retire, and that'd be nice. And there's one of our friends who actually is a client as well as a customer as well, sat with us one night when we were saying, this is what our idea is. And he says, well, I think it's a great idea. He says, but you're absolutely sure? He says, where are you going to get the work from? And blah, blah, blah. And we kind of says, well, we'll wing it. We'll wing it. And then he came back. He works for a rental company. And came back to us and he went, right, I've had to think. He went, if I give you the first 500 cars off in my fleet, he says, will that get you going? And we said, yeah. And we said, right, okay. He says, and there's one stipulation. He says, you just make sure you work them properly. Yes, and we'll get them back to you. I said, yes. And he gave us the first work provision to actually open our doors. He is still giving us work provision, and he is still always on the phone saying, can I help you? You are doing great. He's put us forward for awards. He's always been championing us. And all the way through our career, he would say to us, listen, you need to come down. You need to come down to Ascot. You need to come down here. I want to introduce you to. And he opened up so many doors. And I think without that, we would have still got there, but it would have taken us a bit longer. And it's because it's difficult to actually get into that environment when you're new, because everybody kind of like, well, who are you? And for a long, long time, we were just a small garage, but who are they? You are just a small garage. Now we've earned the kudos to actually be at these events, and now people know who we are. So we can't fly under the radar anymore. We're kind of, so it's like we know who you are, and you get invited to a lot of these things. And our branding is out there now, so we're well known. But yeah, I would say that Dave is probably our biggest champion. He knew the industry very, very well. Clearly, he was in it for many, many years, and he knew where all these cars were going to be worked on. So he kind of knew what we needed to do, and he gave us just that boost. And again, he's still giving us a boost. He's still every day we get a wee phone call from him to say how's things going, and he's retiring soon as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what he's going to be doing with his time. But
your network is so important, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and who they know that can get you where you want.
Absolutely. Yeah. And because a lot of the time it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And we have one of our other close friends we worked with many, many years ago, Graham, and he supplies paint to us. He's got a distribution company, and he gave us initially the step up. So when we started originally, paint companies, because you've got no credit rating, nobody knows who you are, no one's going to give you funding. If you want to buy anything, it needs to be paid for up front, because you've got no history. So it was great. Dave gave us the work, but we had no paint to put on the cars. So how do we get our stock? So Graham says, I will put a stock in. He says, and then you just pay for what you use. He says, and I'll give you 90 days credit. And we were like, oh my God, hallelujah. So without him, we wouldn't have stocked up. We wouldn't have had paint. And we still have that paint supplier because of the support that they gave us, this company gave us at the very beginning. And they're a small family-run business. And they understood what it was like to set up a small business. They supported us. And after that, and we use them today. We still use them today. We haven't changed paint companies at all, because of that. We're quite loyal when it comes to that. Yeah.
So what would be your advice to someone else that was thinking of starting up a small business or scaling up in the way that you have? What would be your one golden nugget?
Golden nugget, know your audience. Find your niche, find what the gap in the market, and put all your energies into doing that part, getting that right. That's your springboard. And then from there, you can build on from there. But we went through a lot of change where we were trying to do everything. So we were trying to be all things to all men. And all you were doing was you were doing multiple things, but badly, instead of doing one thing well. So get one thing that you're known for. And then after that, it is a case of, well, here is the proof. This is what we do. And then you can expand on that. But if you're saying, oh, we can do this, we can do this, we can do that. But actually, we've spread ourselves so far thin that we're not actually producing properly. Concentrate on one key thing that you know, and something that the customer will not get anywhere else. And for us, that is almost a partnership relationship with our customers. So we want to enhance your business as much as you want to enhance mine. So we work together, and we provide a support network for that client when it comes to getting their cars back to them, picking their cars up. Because the rental industry, it's all about how long their cars are off the road. When their cars are off the road, they're losing money. So if we can reduce that time by putting in processes that they won't get anywhere else. Another garage will wait 4 days to pick their car up and bring it in, whereas we jump on it and say, right, okay, we'll get your car in here, we'll turn it around in 2 hours and we'll get it back to you. That's our niche. That's where our reputation has been built, is because we're enhancing their business, because we're getting the cars back to them a lot faster so that their cars can go back out on the roads for the revenue. And that's how we've built it. Now, what's happening is the other daily rental firms that we don't currently use are now coming to us and saying, these are the best in business. Will you do that for us? And so from a scaling point of view, that would be my advice. Do one thing exceptionally well and use that as your springboard to say, we are the best at doing this. Then you'll expand on that just by having that proof to prove to everybody that you can actually do it.
I love that. Niche down to scale.
We have failed in certain areas, which is not a bad thing. Failing is quite good. If you have to fail to learn and grow, or you will learn nothing. If you never failed at anything, then you wouldn't really learn anything. Whereas you do have to try these things, and if it doesn't work, then change it. And you think, right, park it. That's never going to work. Not our part of our business. We won't do that. We'll stick to this, because we have done a bit of diverse. We've moved into different areas. We've taken on pieces of work that we really shouldn't be putting through a body shop. But at the time, you're thinking, give it a go. But this is failing. It's not going to work. Then instead of panicking about it, it's fine. Park it. Move on. We'll try something else. And eventually, you will get to the point where you know exactly what you need to do in your business, and you know exactly what you're doing for your customers. And knowing that your niche is the route that you go through. And although you want to dabble in other areas, you need to make sure that actually my priority is this because it works. But we will try a bit of this on either side, but we won't compromise what we do to do something completely different. I think that's probably why we've been a bit successful. We are being so successful, is that we have tried different things and recognised that it's not for us, and then moved on and finally got what we actually works for us, and we do it really well. We do it very, very well.
Brilliant advice. Fantastic advice. Elaine, I could talk to you about your experiences all day, but yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on to interview you today on Scale Her Up and the Business Spotlight. Thank you very much for joining me.
No, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to Scale Her Up, the Female Entrepreneurs Show. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes, and join our Facebook community at Scale Her Up. Please connect with me, Brenda Hector, on social media and drop me a message to let me know how you're enjoying the podcasts, or even better, pop up a review. I'll finish by reminding you that only 1 in 3 UK entrepreneurs are female, and men are 5 times more likely to scale their business to over 1 million in turnover than women are. If we started and scaled our businesses to the same extent as men, it would add £250 billion to the UK economy and provide millions of jobs. Ladies, you can do it and make a massive difference.